Once upon a time, Harry and Meghan were the poster children for what the world imagined as the Hollywood royal dream. Picture this: a $14 million Montecito mansion with manicured lawns that screamed privileged private jets, courtesy of Elton John, and a lifestyle polished to sparkle under California's golden sun. It was the fairy tale sequel no one asked for, but everyone tuned in to watch. And yet, like any Netflix series that receives an expensive promotion, only to be canceled after its first season, the storyline is already collapsing in slow motion. What once looked like an empire of influence has started to resemble a castle, built of sand, grand from afar, fragile up close. The gilded walls of Montecito meant to shield them from royal duties, and media glare now feel more like an ivory cage where the echo of their own ambitions bounces back louder than ever. They wanted to play the leading roles in their own script, free from the rigid monarchy, but forgot the golden rule of Hollywood: you can't stay relevant on sympathy alone. Their brand thrived on the drama of departure, rebelling against the firm, exposing royal secrets, and standing under the spotlight of global pity. But once the tears dried and the headlines moved on, so did the public's patience. Sympathy has an expiration date, and theirs seems to have passed faster than the shelf life of a supermarket avocado. Once adored as the brave couple fighting archaic traditions, they are now drifting into the shadows of irrelevance. Not quite royals, not quite stars, just caught in a bizarre limbo. Critics whisper that Meghan envisioned herself as the next Oprah, a visionary woman of influence and wealth, but the reality is far less flattering. They are spending like Oprah, but not earning like Oprah, a dangerous mismatch when your lifestyle requires more millions than your brand can generate. The irony is sharp. They left the monarchy in search of freedom and fortune, but all they've gained is the freedom to spend recklessly while watching opportunities evaporate. For Harry, the dream seems even more misplaced. The prince who once wore military uniform with pride, who built the Invictus Games as a symbol of resilience, now appears more like a side character in Meghan's relentless attempt to transform herself into America's next lifestyle mogul. And for Meghan, the glamorous reinvention she promised Duchess, activist, producer, entrepreneur, now feels like a long resume of unfinished projects. The Montecito mansion with its lavender gardens and meditation rooms feels less like a sanctuary of success and more like a stage set for a fairy tale that failed to sell. The cruel truth: in Hollywood, fascination fades quickly. Yesterday's icons are today's cautionary tales. And for Harry and Meghan, the fairy tale isn't just losing its magic, it's unraveling in real time. The freedom they once flaunted is starting to look suspiciously like exile, and the success they promised to build now resembles a PR mirage evaporating with every passing headline. But the truth doesn't stop there. The collapse of Harry and Meghan's Hollywood royal image isn't just about fading glamour. It's about the numbers, the contracts, the hard cash. Once celebrated as power players who could bend media empires to their will, they are now better described as a case study in financial mismanagement. The Spotify deal was supposed to be their golden ticket, millions poured into podcasts that promised to bring authentic voices to the table. Instead, what listeners got was a handful of bland episodes, Meghan's carefully scripted monologues, and the occasional celebrity guest that couldn't quite mask the lack of substance. The result: Spotify pulled the plug, with industry insiders joking that the Sussexes were grifters and couture. It wasn't just a business failure, it was a public humiliation. And then came Netflix. Their multi-million-dollar contract sparked fevered speculation about documentaries, series, and original content. For a brief moment, the world wondered if Harry and Meghan had cracked the code to rebrand themselves as media moguls. But their so-called Limonada project fizzled, another overhyped promise that ended in quiet cancellation. In Hollywood, failing once is forgivable, but failing twice makes you a punchline. Financial reality now bites. The lavish Montecito lifestyle with security teams, personal chefs, nannies, and staff costs far more than the inheritance from Diana or the Queen Mother could ever sustain. They're not bankrupt, not yet. But compared to Hollywood's elite, they're teetering on the edge of irrelevance, unable to keep up with the luxury game they once flaunted. The irony: they're living in a gilded mansion, yet trapped in a financial cul-de-sac. Observers point out that their trajectory is less power couple and more flop couple. They left the monarchy claiming they wanted to escape the pressure of being working royals, yet they've stumbled into an even harsher system: Hollywood capitalism, where failure is neither forgiven nor forgotten. They once believed they were creating a dynasty of influence, but the dynasty has crumbled before it even began. Perhaps the most tragicomic part is that Meghan genuinely seemed to believe she could step into the cultural space once occupied by Oprah building an empire of empathy, influence, and entertainment. Instead, what the public sees is a knockoff version of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, but without the charisma, the humor, or the marketability. Meghan wants to be a mogul, but she's acting like an influencer past her prime. Harry, meanwhile, floats in the background, looking less like a co-leader and more like a supporting character who lost his script. If there were an Oscar for reckless spending and failed ventures, the Sussexes would already have a shelf full of statues. Their pursuit of American success has turned into a tragicomedy where each new headline feels like another punchline at their expense. What was once marketed as a bold escape from tradition now looks suspiciously like a slow-motion disaster, a financial freefall wrapped in PR gloss. You'd think the drama couldn't get worse, but of course Harry and Meghan proved otherwise. Their image, once a gleaming brand that attracted sponsors and invitations like moths to a flame, has now become the PR equivalent of a wet firecracker. Corporate partners who once courted them with glossy deals are now running for the hills. Luxury brands which rely on aspirational allure have discovered that the Sussexes no longer sell the fantasy. After all, what's glamorous about watching two ex-royals try and fail to reinvent themselves as Hollywood titans? It's like expecting a tiara to shine when it's already missing half the diamonds. The signs of decline are everywhere. Once paraded on red carpets, they now make fewer public appearances, citing a desire for privacy, though everyone knows the invitations simply aren't flooding in anymore. Staff members have been quietly cut, not because Meghan suddenly developed a minimalist streak, but because the bills are stacking higher than the Montecito hedges. And perhaps the most humiliating downgrade of all, no more private jets on loan from Elton John. They're still traveling, of course, but with a far less glamorous entourage. Nothing screams fallen royalty quite like booking commercial flights while pretending it's an eco-friendly choice. The irony is delicious. Meghan spent years crafting the image of a modern-day Oprah, a global lifestyle icon with the power to sway hearts and wallets. Instead, she's morphed into something closer to an Instagram influencer whose followers are rapidly clicking unfollow. The difference is stark. Oprah built an empire on authenticity and resilience, while Meghan and Harry tried to build theirs on grievances and gossip. One empire endures, the other crumbles like a poorly baked souffle. Even the media, once obsessed with every Sussex revelation, has shifted tone. Headlines that used to gush about their bravery now read like autopsies of a failed brand. Commentators quip that the couple has gone from global icons to Hollywood wallpaper, always there but hardly noticed. It's the cruel fate of those who rely too heavily on the oxygen of publicity. Once it runs out, so does the relevance. The most biting irony: their brand was always built on drama. The royal exit, the Oprah interview, the tell-all memoir, it all fueled their rise. But drama is a double-edged sword. It entertains at first, but eventually it exhausts. The public that once pitied them now rolls its eyes, tired of the constant victim narrative. What once looked like bravery now feels like whining. And no brand survives when its audience tunes out. So here they are, trapped in their own paradox, too famous to disappear, too irrelevant to matter. They wanted to be the diamonds of Hollywood, but at this point, they're looking more like pebbles scattered along the sidewalk, noticed only when someone bothers to trip over them. Another veil has just been pulled back. Behind the glamorous headlines and PR spin lies a family drama so raw that even Hollywood scriptwriters might hesitate to pen it. Because while Harry and Meghan grapple with their fading relevance in California, the real battlefield is still across the Atlantic inside the House of Windsor. King Charles, ever the pragmatist, reportedly sees his youngest son as a potential lifeline for the monarchy's battered reputation. The plan sounds almost Shakespearean: bring Harry back into the fold, perhaps even extend an olive branch to Meghan, and present a united front to the world. It's the kind of royal reboot that could, in theory, soften the cracks in the monarchy's image. But there's one immovable obstacle: Prince William. William's stance could not be clearer. He will not under any circumstances carry what he allegedly calls the Meghan circus. To him, allowing his brother back means welcoming chaos, endless headlines, and the shadow of betrayal. Palace insiders whisper that William views Meghan not just as a divisive figure, but as a virus of publicity, contagious, uncontrollable, and deeply damaging to the royal institution. In this high-stakes family feud, every gesture becomes a weapon, every silence a dagger. And then came the curveball. The Sun, one of Britain's most notorious tabloids, suddenly published an article urging reconciliation. On the surface, it looked like a simple call for peace. But seasoned observers know better. When a tabloid flips its tone, it's rarely spontaneous. The whispers are chilling. Was this media pivot orchestrated from within the palace itself, a test balloon to gauge public reaction to a potential royal reunion? If so, the stakes have never been higher. Meanwhile, Meghan's Hollywood strategy isn't faring any better. She once envisioned herself standing shoulder to shoulder with powerhouses like the Kardashians or Gwyneth Paltrow, building a lifestyle empire that blended glamour with influence. But the reality is far harsher. She hasn't become the queen of Hollywood. At best, she's a guest star cameo in her own story. Former allies are fading away. Oprah, once her loudest champion, now keeps a polite distance. Tyler Perry, who famously gave them refuge, has gone quiet. In Hollywood, silence often speaks louder than scandal. It signals irrelevance. The atmosphere is suffocating. On one side of the Atlantic, a monarchy wrestling with survival. On the other, a couple scrambling to salvage their brand in a world that's moved on. Every failed project, every missed opportunity, every frosty silence from former friends amplifies the sense that the walls are closing in. For Harry, the tension is unbearable. Torn between the family he left and the future he cannot seem to secure, he risks losing both. And in this silence, heavy and unspoken, hangs the inevitable question: when the storm finally breaks, whose side will he be on? This is the moment when everyone holds their breath. For all the glamour, all the interviews, all the PR campaigns, the final act of the Harry and Meghan saga may come down to the one project Harry once believed would define his legacy: the Invictus Games. Created as a beacon of hope for wounded veterans, Invictus once symbolized Harry's greatest strength, his ability to connect authentically, to inspire, to lead beyond the confines of royalty. But now even that sanctuary is cracking. Longtime allies such as Edward Lane Fox have stepped away, while whispers ripple through the donor community. Is Invictus still about the veterans, or has it become yet another stage for Sussex drama? The implication is devastating, that the very cause Harry championed has been overshadowed by his personal brand. Sponsors and insiders alike are quietly suggesting that the games need a new face, someone less polarizing, someone who won't drag the mission into the mud of family feuds and Hollywood gossip. For Harry, this isn't just another professional setback. It's a personal earthquake. If Invictus slips from his grasp, what remains? The monarchy is closed to him. Hollywood laughs at him, and the one achievement built with genuine purpose may no longer want his name attached. It's not just reputation at stake, it's identity. Meanwhile, Meghan continues her restless reinvention tour. Duchess, activist, producer, entrepreneur, each role tried on like a new designer gown, each abandoned once the seams failed to hold. Critics now say she is trapped in a cycle of soft launches that never become full successes, a woman chasing titles without ever building foundations. And the public has noticed. What once drew curiosity now elicits only eye rolls. The cruel irony is inescapable. They fled the monarchy to carve out freedom, yet now find themselves prisoners of dwindling relevance. They sought independence from tradition, yet became dependent on the very media machine they claimed to despise. Each choice meant to secure their future has instead tightened the noose around their brand. And looming over it all is the unshakable wall of Prince William's resolve. He will not forgive. He will not forget. For him, reconciliation is not a lifeline, it is a trap. And as long as William holds that line, Harry's return to the fold remains impossible. The monarchy may extend its hand for appearances, but the brotherhood is broken, perhaps forever. So here stands the Sussex story, a couple once hailed as the embodiment of courage and modernity, now reduced to symbols of wasted potential. Their brand, built on sympathy, scandal, and spectacle, has finally exhausted the public's appetite. What remains is isolation, a slow retreat into irrelevance, and the painful realization that freedom without strategy is just exile in disguise. The curtain doesn't fall with a bang, but with a suffocating silence. The fairy tale promised freedom and success. The reality delivers isolation and retreat. And in that silence, one truth echoes louder than any scandal: they were never ready for the empire they tried to build.